Let us pray. May the words of my lips and the meditations of each and all our hearts be now and always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. The other night, I was with volunteers at prison in Townsville. I happened to mention to the person beside me that I would be preaching this Sunday on the passage of Matthew, where Jesus is tempted by Satan. This colleague of mine turned to me and said, "Oh yes, that is the passage which speaks of the love of power and the power of love." She named it. The love of power and the power of love is what a lot of this passage is about. This Matthew passage speaks to us about God allowing Jesus to be tested by Satan. Satan, as illustrated here, represents the love of power. Jesus, as we know, stands for the power of love. Just prior to this interaction, Jesus had been baptized by his cousin John in the Jordan River. The Holy Spirit then directed Jesus to go into the wilderness. The wilderness was thought of in Jesus' time as a desolate and empty place, posing a great challenge. A description of the wilderness from Numbers chapter 20 says, "Why did you bring us to this terrible place? It has no grain, no figs, no grapevines, and no pomegranates. There is no water to drink." The wilderness was thought of to be the domain of nomads, the lawless, the mentally challenged, people who had very few choices. The wilderness was considered a dark place, a primordial state in the universe. It was associated with the wanderings of Israel, which spoke of a time of tension between God and his people. It was in the wilderness that God entered into covenant with Israel. Israel grew to know that it had to depend on God in this inhospitable place. God showed his power to sustain the people during their wilderness journey. Satan's offers served as a maximum test of Jesus' discernment and courage. The word temptation derives from the Greek. It means to entice someone to do wrong, to seek to seduce someone into sin, to try and persuade someone to take the wrong way. The Greek word for temptation also means to test. God was not opening the way for Jesus to do wrong. God did seem to be testing Jesus' loyalty and obedience. As Barclay says, testing is not meant to make us sin. It is meant to enable us to conquer sin. It is not meant to make us bad. It is meant to make us good. It is not meant to weaken us. It is meant to make us emerge stronger, finer, and pure from the ordeal. Temptation or testing is not the penalty of being human. It is the glory of being human. It is a test which comes from God when God wishes to use us. The temptations and Jesus' answer demonstrate his messianic mission. The references to Deuteronomy show that the law itself reveals the true character of Messiahship. The three temptations are the temptations to love power. The first, which takes place in a low place in the wilderness after Jesus has fasted for 40 days, speaks about the abuse of miraculous power to to provide for ordinary material needs. In this case, the suggestion is to turn rocks of limestone into loaves of bread. Jesus does not deny that ordinary needs should be met by ordinary means, but basic physical necessities are less important than the revealed Word of God. Jesus fulfills his mission by proclaiming the Word that is life to others, to win people to God, not by providing for his own basic physical needs. Jesus calls people to a life of giving, not getting. The only way toward a life of satisfaction is dependence on God. The second temptation takes place on the pinnacle of a temple. This involves the abuse of miraculous power to produce a display, a sign, to convince and manipulate believers into believing. To leap and amaze people is the method of false messiahs and leads to failure. These are sensations that people perform. Jesus warns against being rash, against appealing to the spectacular. As it said, this year's sensations are next year's commonplace. These sensations impose upon God what God has not promised to fulfill, and imposes a way that God has not chosen to reveal himself. God does not desire people to put themselves into a deliberately threatened situation and expect God to rescue them from it. God expects risk in order to be true to him. Otherwise, it is doubt looking for proof in the wrong place. To long for sensation is to distrust God. The third temptation takes place on the top of the mountain. This demonstrates the abuse of miraculous power to manipulate political power in order to accomplish his messianic mission. Jesus equates this secular messianism to worshiping false gods. This involves the temptation to try and change the world by becoming like the world. Jesus knew that we would never defeat evil by compromising the Christian faith. Christians must not stoop to the level of the world, but must lift the world to its level. Jesus has been given all authority in heaven and earth by God, Father, but he chose obedient sonship. St. Jerome wrote that Matthew wrote about these tests of Jesus to point out that the temptations come not to Jesus, but to the church, which carries out Jesus' mission. This passage from Matthew may have been written for an ecclesial purpose. It was to say that the spiritual dangers that threaten the integrity of the mission of the church have already been met by Jesus. Jesus has shown how the church can and must overcome them. The wilderness, which is a place of horror and judgment, becomes the place of ultimate restoration. The new Adam, who is Jesus, triumphs over Satan in contrast to the old Adam, the first Adam. Jesus' obedience means being committed to following God's word, to trusting God completely, and to loving and serving him alone. God offers the reality of what it means to be human. Jesus has succeeded in being obedient to God's covenant, and consequently, Jesus brings light to the world. Jesus kept his eyes on God and undid the effects of human rebellion. Jesus refused to go the way of the tempter. He embraced the way of the cross. His path of servanthood led him to suffering and death, to carrying out God's call, to redeeming the world. The struggle Jesus experienced when confronted with the temptations were inner. They went on in his heart, his mind, his soul. The power of the devil is that he breaks through our defenses and attacks us from within, from our inmost thoughts and desires. Sometimes we may be tempted through our gifts, or through where we see ourselves as strongest. When Jesus was tempted, he was alone. We know about the situation because Jesus must have told his disciples about it. Jesus laid bare what was going on inside him, showed them his experiences, and in that way is telling us that he can help us because he himself went through the experience. He points to God as a higher focus of self-investment. He chooses the opposite of what he had been tempted toward. After leaving the wilderness, Jesus returned to Galilee and formed a community. He reached out for a relationship and shared his gifts and his powers. The power of love and an open heart calls us to overcome our fears, to deepen our faith, and to realize more of who God is for us. As we journey into Lent today, we reflect on the differences between the love of power and the power of love. I will end with a quote from Belden Lane. Why am I drawn to desert and mountain fierceness? What impels me to its unmitigated honesty, its dreadful capacity to strip bare, its long, compelling silence, its frail hope that in finding myself brought to the edge, I may hear a word whispered in its loneliness. The word is love, spoken pointedly and undeniably to me. It may have been uttered many times in the past, but I am fully able to hear it in that silence. Thanks be to God. Amen.